Hello kids, how are you doing? So it's Jesse here and I'm gonna analyze your games from the Golden Pawn tournament and I'm gonna start from the lowest rated group and all the way up. Okay, so in total it's gonna be 4 games. So right now I'm gonna start with this game between Menlo Lohita versus Henry 8. So yeah, so let's start. So he played e6, which characterizes the French defense. And now he played c5, which is not the best move. The best move is to play d5, play more on the center, already attacking the pawn on e4. So d5 is the best move here, and you should study the French defense to get more knowledge on this opening, okay? c5, he played c3. He could also have played d5 to gain some space, but c3 is okay. Now, something to realize on this position is that black made too many pawn moves. So on the opening, you should focus on the development of your pieces. Okay, develop your knight, develop your bishops and castle. Okay, that's what you must do on the opening. Develop your pieces and castle. Do not make too many moves with the pawns. Okay. Uh, Bishop d6, and now he took on a3. So and now all the dark squares are very weakened. And also, usually the bishop is stronger than the knight. Okay, your bishop is much more active. He has his range of attack of activity is much longer than of this knight, right? This knight on a3 isn't doing much. Your bishop is much more important, so that's why you shouldn't trade it. So you should have kept your bishop. Okay. But okay, let's keep going. Exchange queens. Could also have maybe taken the pawn. Maybe could have been an idea. And again, could have taken the pawn probably, but it's okay. And now white had checkmate in 2 moves. If you want to try to find it, you can try to find it. So yeah, checkmate in 2. So it's bishop h5 check, and then knight f7 and bishop takes, and that's a checkmate. And the white could have done this checkmate 3 times on this game. That's the first time. After bishop takes d6, knight c6 again, he could have checkmated. And then one last time here, he could have come back with the knight and then checkmate again, right? But now after bishop e7, which is a huge blunder because now the is hanging. Yeah, and now another piece is hanging. Yeah, and then black just exchange pieces, simplified, bring the rooks to the game, activated the rooks, and now yeah, now it's checkmate. So the main lessons for this game is first, the opening principles. You should develop all of your pieces, your knights and bishops and castle. Okay, do not make too many pawn moves. And secondly, for white, um, you should be able to recognize these mating patterns, statical patterns. So I highly recommend you to do a lot of puzzle storm on Lichess. Okay, so you get better at tactics. Okay, so let's jump now to the second game, which is Vivek Neelan versus Aditi Aura J0319. I hope that I pronounced it right. So I'm gonna be seeing with the white pieces here, and he played with e4 and then e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, the Italian opening, knight f6, knight c3, bishop c5. There's also a trick here for black, which is to take on e4 and then d5. Okay, that's also a possible variation for black here. Very, it's worthy of studying. But continuing with the game, there's pins. And here, white took right away, which is okay, but also possible is to bring the king to the corner. Just no getting out of the diagonal, getting out of the checks, and after you take with the g pawn, the g5 is already open for the rook. but it's okay. And now king h1. And now black made a blunder here by playing rook f8. There's no need to play rook f8 because first of all, you're not black is not getting the mature is not gonna be able to save the rook because the bishops are controlling all the squares that the rook can go. So there's no point into moving the rook again. So leave it at the open file at least. And actually, you should have taken the pawn as black here. Just take the pawn, and now maybe on the future could happen some checkmating patterns on g1, right? Of course, white has this a1 rook, but you know maybe it could happen. Maybe a checkmate could happen on g1 at some point. But rook f8, and now he took the rook, which is not a good move. You could have just kept the rook because this bishop is really powerful on this diagonal, and then as white you can follow up with rook g1 followed by a threatening bishop g7 checkmate. And if black plays bishop f2, there is a very nice tactic with white here, and if you want to try to find it, you can try. So the best move here for white is to play queen g2, threatening the bishop and threatening checkmate, and white is totally winning here. And so after the game, bishop f8, queen f8, bishop c4, bishop f2, takes f2, rook f1, bishop goes back, a3. A3 doesn't do much, so you should look to improve the position of this rook. So f4 is a way of improving the position of the rook, because after taking on e5, the rook will be pressuring the pawn on f6, right? So yeah, but yeah, a3 doesn't do much. b4, a4, rook e1, rook g1, and now queen h6, queen g2, threatening checkmating too, right? Check, and then after rook takes g8 would be checkmate, and now black made a terrible blunder, rook g8, and now checkmate, right? There was queen g5 as a defense, and yeah, black could hold this game, but rook g8 was a blunder. And for this game, again, I highly recommend to study some tactical patterns with Puzzle Storm. Okay, and now let's go to the third game. So this is RQPU 3639 versus GA, and let's open up this game. Okay, e4 c6, the Caracan defense. I like this opening very much. I played myself. It's a very solid opening, very good to learn. Okay, d5, knight c3 takes. Here white has many options. He can take the pawn, he can push to e5, he even can play f3. But the main line is to play knight c3 or e5. That these are the two main variations, knight c3 or e5, and he plays knight c3. After takes, black played bishop f5. Recently, a variation that has been popularized is knight f6, and I have been playing it myself. It's a very interesting opening because after takes, this pawn structure is very good for the black king because it's going to be really safe with this extra pawn, and also you can also be preparing some attacks on the king side because of this extra pawn, and also there will be open diagonals pointing to the king. So after, let's say, castle, knight d7, knight f8, knight g6, you could maneuver your pieces in a way that you can create an attack on the king side. Okay, but bishop f5 is okay, is the main line actually. Knight g3, bishop g6, knight f3, knight f6, and then here white played bishop d3, which is not the main line, as usually h4 comes first to gain some space on the king side, and let's say after h6, because, well, white is threatening to play h5, winning the piece. So after h6, then you can play as white play knight e5, threatening to take the bishop and ruin the pawn structure. And then after bishop h7, then you play bishop d3. And now let's say after e6, bishop d2, and then you long castle and play f4, and then you try to create some attacks on the king side, right? Because you, as white, you have a space advantage and some advantage in development as well. So that's why you should try to long castle and try to attack. Okay. So going back to the way the game was played, bishop d3, bishop f4, bishop d6, exchange, castle, knight bd7, rook e1. And now black did a mistake here by castling long, because it's easier for white to attack on the queen side, because first of all the pawn structure is a little bit more damaged, and also the king is a little bit more closer to the center, right? So yeah, it's much easier for white to push these pawns and open up the position and create an attack. And as black, it's not gonna be that easy, because first of all there are two knights protecting the king, and also the pawns haven't been moved. So yeah, that these are the main reasons. Also, there is no easy pawn breakthrough because we have double pawns here, so we can't really create an easy breakthrough. That's why it was much better to just castle short, play safe, play, just have your king into safety, and then you have an equal game here, right? But castling long is very dangerous here. Queen d3, knight b6 is not exactly the best. I should place our king on b8, try to move him a little bit far away from the center, a little bit to a safer square. White played with c3. He could have played with c4 right away to try to start the attack with knight e5, queen c3, b4, b5, a4, a5, and create the start the pawn avalanche to open up the queen side against black. c3, g5, not the best. You should improve the position of your pieces first before moving any pawns, okay? Pieces are more important than pawns. The activity of the pieces are more important. And you just actually gave a pawn. He played knight e4, which was not the best. He could just move back the knight to f3 to overprotect the h2 pawn, and then white has a clear plan of pushing the queenside pawns to open up the queen side against the black king and creating an attack. Okay. After knight e4, take. Rook h4 is a blunder because now there is a tactical theme here. It's a double attack and also a pin here. The right move was to play queen f6, and you just keep playing. Everything's safe. No, be sure to be that everything is protected. Then now you can play rook h4. Maybe the knight could over to knight e5. Maybe knight f4. Maybe you could do double up on the h file. But after rook h4, there is knight f5, double attack, and you cannot take the knight because of this pin. On this position, black had a simple threat of taking on d5, and there is a very good way for white to defend against this threat. If you can find it, give it a shot. And it is playing with d5, right? To make use of the pin on the e file, and that's some winning advantage that white has here. But after g4, that's a blunder because now black takes the pawn, is threatening to take the rook, and also threatening to play knight f3 check. And even if he plays rook e3, he can play knight c2, right? So yeah. And after rook d2, which is an even bigger blunder, there's knight f3 check, and now knight takes the rook, and now we are a full piece up, and that's a totally winning endgame, which black just takes all the pawns and promotes, right? And that's it. Okay, Very good. So now let's jump to the last game. Okay, let me open it up here. So this game is between Greasy Aluminum versus BV 1006 or 1006, and it's the elite section, right? So pretty strong players there. Okay, so e4, e6, d4, d5, e5, the advanced variation, gain some space. That's a very ambitious variation, and one of the main lines. c5, c3, knight c6, knight f3, queen b6, bishop e2, knight g7, and queen b3. Queen b3 is not the best move here. You could have taken on c5, you could have castled. Queen b3 is not the best move. It's also possible sometimes to play with a3 before, but yeah, you shouldn't play queen b3 here. Black played c4, which is not the best. He could have just taken, right, and then take on d4. And for example, if c takes, sometimes there's some knight jumps, but also knight f5 and pressure the d4 pawn. And white has these double isolated pawns on the b file. So yeah, it's not a very good position for white. And white exchange. It's also possible to go back to d1. It's also a possible variation. But okay. e5, h5 was also possible to control this g4 square to stop some g4 ideas that white may have. So h5 is a very positional move to control to keep the knight on f5, this outpost. Knight 3. So here, g4 is a better move to kick out the knight first, right? Just attack the knight. He has to go back. Let if it goes to e7, you can play h4, and you'll be building up on the king side, right? You'll be pushing these pawns. You can maybe later try to play f4, f5. And you're going to be maneuvering your pieces and try to get some favorable breakthrough on the king side. And if the knight h6, you can exchange and play h4, and it has this weird double isolated pawns on the h file, and then you can proceed with king d2, knight 3, maybe later g5 or h5, improving the position of your pieces. And also remember to improve this position of these rooks is also very important at some point. But okay, knight 3, and now exchanges happen before, and now there's some pressure against this f pawn. Rook a1. So e4 was also possible, okay, because this e3 pawn is not doing much now. So e4, so it open up some diagonals, threatening to take on d5, and then after e takes, the d5 pawn will be weak, so you can play bishop f3, pressuring the d5 pawn. So that can be an interesting idea, right? And it's also good in general. It's good to get rid of the double pawns, right? Black made a blunder here playing h6. The good move was to play just bishop e7 and keep developing. But h6 is a blunder because now white has a very good tactical resource, which he made very good use. After knight f7, knight takes, bishop h5, and now there's this deadlooping. Before, when the pawn was on h7, he could have played g6 now, but now he can't because, well, he'll just take the pawn and the pin will still be alive. Bishop e7, rook takes. So yeah, and now he's bringing the other rook, which is very good. Activate all of your pieces, make the best use of all of your pieces. That's very good. g3, exchange bishops, h4, took the pawn. Yeah, just keep winning material. Exchange rooks, bishop b4 check, bringing the bishop to a more active position. Rook h7, attacking the other pawn, just winning, yeah, winning pawns all the way. And now there's this other pin which wins the rook, and now black surrender. Yeah, there's not much you can do against this pawn, right? So yeah, very good game. White made very good use of a tactical resource. My recommendation for White is to study a little bit more about the French opening, this advanced variation. To look through some games, um, Wesley So or Fabiano Caruana games. You can get a lot of knowledge against this opening if you just look through a couple of games, okay, some high quality games. And for black, always be aware of the opponent's threat. Okay, you need to practice some tactical defensive exercises about defense of recognizing the opponent's threat, and that's it. And if any of you want to watch more of my games being analyzed or um, some play and explain videos, you can watch me on YouTube, Chess with Jesse. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I hope you see you guys again.